Hey guys, and welcome to yet another Code Way Too Easy video. Um, I'm Jimmy, and I'm your instructor. Like I mentioned prior, we have our Google Classroom for Code Way Too Easy, free version, and the premium version. More details will be provided in the video description. So let's go ahead and jump to it. Again, where this video here is another part of the video of our beginning coding series, where we've talked about how to output information from your computer onto your screen, how to store information, how to manipulate that information, um, some of the different data types associated to variables. What is a variable? It's a container. It holds information. It has a name. Um, we've also talked a little bit about comments, like putting comments or details within your code to describe what your code is doing. So again, yesterday we did Python. Today we're going to jump into Java. Again, programming languages are just nothing more than just a tool that you use to accomplish something. So we're not being specific on any programming language. I'm going to show you all different programming languages and how all the concepts carry from one language to another. And that's the idea. These are going to be short, concise videos. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let me go ahead and present my screen to you. And without further ado, let's do some Java and let's do some coding. Remember, coding is nothing more than instructions that you give, step-by-step instructions that you give to your computer to conduct something. So today we're going to do a Java tutorial. Again, we also talked about syntax. So in programming languages or in coding, there's a certain syntax that we use, Java syntax. So it's the way you structure your code. So here's an example of a Java file or a Java class. The title of this Java program or code is my class. That's the name. We start off with an empty file and we insert. This is the basics, essentially. So in Java, you need to declare your class, your code, if you will. It's called my class. You need to have a opening and closing bracket. And then with inside this, you put the code, actually. And then the first thing, or the first thing that gets run in a Java program is a method or a function known as public static void main. And then it takes in as parameters or as inputs some arguments, args, some arguments if you wish to pass in, and it treats it like a string array. I know that was a lot of information, but we'll show examples of this later on. But the first, let me see if I can get this a little bit bigger so you can see with a little bit easier. But here we go. So we're doing a system, so out.println. So what we're doing is executing a command and telling the computer, hey, our Java computer, why don't you just go ahead and output this information to the screen? All right, so the hello world, and this is your typical first type of program. You're printing information, output information to the screen for the user to see. All right, so this is what we call syntax. It has to be formatted a certain way. It has to have these curly brackets. If you're going to use a function or a method, it needs to be formatted like this. It has to have a certain name associated. This is called main. It has an access type, if it's public, private, whatever. Is it a static method? What does it return? It's void, so it doesn't return anything. It just runs. So, and that's your idea of what syntax is in coding. Some languages are case sensitive, other languages are not case sensitive. Java is case sensitive, so you actually have to have the uppercase S here if you're going to use the system object or variable. So let's see what else. So comments are very helpful. So you may have written a piece of code months ago, and now you need to revisit your code, and you don't not exactly know exactly what it does. You forgot what your thought process. So we can use Java comments within our code to describe to ourselves and to somebody else that may be looking at our code what our code is actually doing. So here's an example. This is a comment. Yes, this is a comment. So this is not actual code here. This line, the highlighted, is not code. It's just for us to put some notes to describe what we're going to do right here. So we could have, let's go ahead and do that actually. So I'm going to create, like in the other lessons, we created variables. So in Java, I'm going to create a string or a piece of text variable or container. And I'm going to start it off like this, string. I'm going to call it ABC, lowercase ABC. And I'm going to set it equal to welcome to code. coding, all right? And then we're going to close that off. Again, in some languages, you need to have a character at the end of the line to indicate that this is the end of the code. In Java, it is such a language. We do that. But we could put a comment here, and we can say, we are creating a variable here. So now we know what's going on here. This is describing what's underneath, what is below that line of code, that line here. So this is what comments are, and it's very useful. You can also put a comment at the very end of your line of code. This is a comment, so you can actually do multi-line comments. So if you have a lot of things to say, you can start off with this in Java, the special characters / asterisk, and then you can go ahead and tell us whatever the information. So this code below will print the words "Hello World" to the screen. It's amazing. So, and then you can close that off, and then here's where the actual code, the computer starts recognizing this is code. I'm going to execute this. All right. So that is what we call the syntax encoding. Comments. You should include comments. Variables, right? We talked about variables some time ago in the last videos. It's just a container that holds information. There's different type of variables. There's string variables, and this is where we're going to get into data types. So you created a container, a variable. What is it? Is it a number? Is it a piece of text? Is it a decimal number? And in the purposes of decimal numbers, such as 19.99, we would indicate in Java. In some languages, you don't even have to indicate what type of data type it is. But in Java, we do indicate that it's a float. So we could create another float here. Let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and create another Java comment. Below, we create a float variable. I'm going to put that for short, var, and then I'm going to indicate float. I'm going to call it f, and I'm going to give it a value of 123.89. So that's a float. All right. We can also create a character, a char. A char would be, so this is a character. All right. And we can call it, we have to indicate first in Java the type of data type it is, the variable it is, the type of container it is, the variable that it is. We're going to call it a character. And then we're going to set that equal to whatever you want. We could actually do like lowercase b, right? And we can close that off. So that's an example of how you could create different variables of varying kinds: float, a char, a string, a number. We can actually create a number. Let's create an integer number. So this is a int variable here. So we're going to create it. We're going to indicate with int space the name of our variable. Let's call it tyui. We can call it whatever variable. That's a nice thing. You can call it whatever you want. Of course, you probably want to pick something more meaningful. And let's make it more meaningful. Let's call this current score for team A, and we can set it to whatever. Let's say that they currently have a 50 points to their favor, right? So these are different ways that we can create variables that we store information that has a name, and we can access it later down the road. There's something called Boolean, and we vaguely talked about that yesterday. So just to give you an idea, a Boolean is it stores the value of two conditions. It's either true or false. So we can create a Boolean. Is coding. So wait a minute. So so here we're going to store a value. Okay, so here we're going to. This is a Boolean. All right. So this is a Boolean. So we're going to indicate that it's a Boolean, and we're going to call the variable is coding really cool, and then we're going to set that equal to false or true. What do you think may be the answer to that? True. Exactly. It's true. So we can go ahead and type true over here. There we go. So this is how we can make use of comments that describe what our code is actually doing. So another comment over here begins with a //, and then here's the actual code that the program will run and use. Okay, so this is Java, specific stuff for Java, but you can carry these concepts over to Python, to C++, to any language. Again, programming language is nothing more than a tool. I just want to make that a huge emphasis. All right. And so let's go to data types. We already vaguely talked about this already. So Here are some examples. The nice thing in some of these coding editors, they highlight current keywords, so it's easier to read. So here we know that this is an int, this is a float. So my num is an int, my float variable is a float, my letter is a char, so it's a character. And actually, in the example that I used over here for char, I actually use a double quotes. I should have used a single quote. That's the syntax needed by Java, a programming language. So we should have indicated it like that. Let me go ahead and update that actually. We want to keep everything legit in the way it should be. All right, so Boolean, my Boolean, is it true or false? And then we have pieces of text, which is a string, and we can say hello. So these are the different data types. There's primitive data types, and here are some of the primitive ones. A byte, you can store different whole numbers from the range of -128 to a +127. So these are primitive data types that you may have used for your program. Here's numbers, right? We talked about integer types. We talked about floating point types, which is nothing more than just a decimal numbers, essentially. So here's some more integer types. So we can talk about a byte. Here's an example of a byte. So this is a legit value because it's between this range here. All right. Here's a short. Again, there's so many different ways. And again, it depends on what you're building, what you're coding. You know, you may have a use for this or not have use for this. Let's see what else we can talk about. So let's talk about operands. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick operands. As you would imagine, you can add two numbers together using the plus sign. You can subtract, of course. This is an example of summing. We can do assignment operators, which is the equal sign. We can look at logical operators, bitwise operators. There's all these different type of operators that we can act on different variables in our code to carry out a certain need. So here's the addition. As we are, you know, this is the minus sign, so you subtract. This is multiplication. This is the division. So you can do all this. This is modulus. And to give you an example of modulus, let me go ahead and take that off. If we were going to create a variable called int, and we're going to call it a, and we set it equal to 8, and then we can go ahead and say the result, right? Let's see, the result of this. So we're going to call this. This is probably going to be an int, right? Let's stick to integers. Result. We created a variable called result, and that's a data type int. And it's going to be equal to the operation of our variable a, which has a value of 8, and then % modulus 2. So essentially what that's saying is if the number associated to a being 8, if it's divisible by 2, then if we divide by 2 over and over again, we'll have a remainder equal to 0. So we know that number is equivalent, it's an even number, essentially. So that's one way of confirming if a number is even or not even. So that's what the modulus, and then there's the incremental operand, etc. So let's go ahead and jump right quickly into one of our favorite sites, Replit languages, Java, and we are going to go ahead and just do some of these examples here. So all right, so let's go ahead and let's create two pieces of text. Okay, so I'm going to indicate string A equal to Jimmy. And then we finish that off with a semicolon. We can create another string. We're going to call it B. We're going to set it equal to España. That's my last name. All right. Now that we've created those two variables, let's add them together. So let's create a new variable, string result. So what we're going to store the result of adding these two strings together. So this is going to be set equal to A plus B, and then we finish that off with a semicolon. And then the next thing we want to do is do a system.out.println to confirm that indeed it put my first name and my last name together. Let's see if that worked out. So let's go ahead and indicate here result. So let's go ahead and run this. Let's copy this just in case, and then we're going to run it. It's currently running, and it's running. Okay, Okay, so we have an error here. Silly me, I forgot to include the semicolon at the end of our file, at the end of our line here. Let's run this again. And this time it will definitely work. I sure hope so. So let's see, it's running. Let's see, it's running. It's still running. It's a little slow. This is a little slow. Here we go. Oh, it's almost finished. So there we go. It did work, guys. It did definitely work. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit more so you can see a little bit better. So it took the string A and string B, which represented my first and last name, and it put it together. But I don't like this. I don't like this because there's not a space. Should be a space between first name and last name. So let's see if there's a way that we can do this. There's something called we can insert another string between this. So for example, we can put a plus sign here, and then here we can indicate another a space. So you can see we have a double quotes, then a space, and then another double quotes. So what we're doing is we're inserting a space in between there. So now it can read a little bit more properly. So let's go ahead and hit run. And it's going to run. It's a little slow. And there we go. Now that looks better. So you can see we can manipulate the way things come out. But that's kind of it, guys, for this session. Again, these videos will be short, concise, and I'm going to be throwing a lot of stuff at you. Please check out our Google Classroom. There's a code in the description here, and let me actually show you that. Let me actually show that to you. Actually, yes. Actually, no. Let me show you it on the next one. Again, I want to keep these videos short. I appreciate you guys' support. Consider subscribing, and all together we're going to learn about coding, and we're going to just get better as problem solvers. And if you want, and if we want, we can get that nice paying tech job that you guys, that most of us would want to have a nice paying tech job. And that's how you're going to do it, with Code Way Too Easy. Through my course, you're going to learn how to do that and get that job if you wish to desire that road, that career path for you. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close, guys. I appreciate everything, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace and goodbye.